This is Justin Levine from PWHPA Over the Glass, and welcome to the BarnBurner TV network and Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download both the BarnBurner and Zingo TV apps in their respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. All right, so this is the inaugural episode of PWHPA Over the Glass, which looks at the going-ons from the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, whether it be player commitments or news of any sort. But, as I mentioned earlier on, I told a little bit about the background of the PWHPA, but I will again, and then we'll get into the commitments from this month. But, there's been nothing in the past week or so. Women's hockey continues to grow, which is excellent, but it's just been a quiet week. But Dream Gap Tour, as I've been told, the intention is to play, and I will get into that after I kind of introduce what the PWHPA is. So the CWHL collapsed in 2018 after the Clarkson Cup Championship, which was won by the Calgary Inferno over Les Canadiens de Montréal. This brought together 200 players because there was an uncertainty of where pro women's hockey looks next in Canada. And so, these players wanted to be assured that if they form an association, that they have a hope for the future. And so they started the Dream Gap Tour, which was a tour to ensure that they could A, continue to play, and B, showcase their talents, this being national team players and non-national team players. That way they can help forge a WNHL one day, a Women's National Hockey League, and hopefully have their talents picked up by A, heavy investor, or B, the NHL. But it's taken a while to get to, discussions with the NHL, who insist that they'll only do it once there is one league. But the NWHL, as I mentioned earlier, they're not so insistent on shutting down, just given all their progress heading into season 6 with the new Toronto 6 expansion team. So that kind of leaves us off where we are now. And with that being said, Dream Gap Tour Year 2 is currently in the works. Again, COVID-19 has, taken its toll, but the players and staff are committed to making sure that when safe, they can play and they can showcase their talents and make sure that, they are noticed as they deserve to be. So let's get into PWHPA commitments for Year 2. It's certainly been a busy few months with them. And now as we kind of wind down in the summer here at August 18th, it's just slowly, very, very slowly starting to wind down. So let's take a look at players who have committed since August 4th. Now, we have to remember that the PWHPA, it believes that they have the best players in the world. Now, this is from the NCAA and from the past year with the PWHPA, mostly CWHL players and a couple of former NWHL players, as mentioned, that Mallory Suliotis from the Boston Pride was with the PW, as was Emily Janiga. And that's just to name a few. Jordan Juron also with the Boston Pride. But, either way, these are the best players in the world. And, regardless, they're looking for a home. And so, they've been promised a home for Year 2 to take on the Dream Gap Tour so they can showcase their product and hopefully have a future in the game of women's pro hockey. So let's start on August 4th, where we see that Taylor Costella becomes a member of the PWHPA. And again, she's one of many faces from school. And joining her on the same day was Ella Matucci, who played in the CWHL with the Markham Thunder, making her return for her second year. What's unique about Ella Matucci, actually, is that she played national team baseball for Canada, which kind of coincided with her love for sports and, later hockey, because, again, she's looking for a place to call home for pro women's hockey. So also on the same day was Blair Turnbull, who was a leader for the Calgary Inferno during the days of the CWHL, and now is one of many noticeable faces when you look at the Calgary chapter of the PWHPA. So also joining from the Connecticut Huskies is Erica DeErico. She's making her debut this year with the PWHPA. And then right behind her is Allison Morris. These players both introduced on August 5th, making their debuts with the PWHPA. Now, again, because I mentioned that the PWHPA is built up of mostly players who formerly played in the Canadian Women's Hockey League, we look at August 5th, where Anissa Gamble, another former CWHL player, also recommitted for a second season. And again, something that has to be reiterated, just given where the state of women's hockey is for the pro game, is that a lot of these women, they're hockey players, and then they've got their day jobs, and so you have to keep in mind that the CWHL, sure, they had late night practices, and that wasn't ideal for everyone, but nor is the NWHL, who's doing the exact same thing. So the PWHPA, they're looking for an infrastructure, and during this time, their players are starting with them. They believe that they're going to figure this out, and they're going to get through this and find themselves on a pro hockey front one day, and then they won't have to have those 9 to 5 day jobs, get home, or rather rush home, and then quickly eat and get out to the rinks. That's exhausting, and that's what the women's game is right now. And so they're looking for viability, they're looking for infrastructure, and this is all part of the mission. So Anissa Gamble joins them, former member of the Toronto Furies. You might hear teams like the Furies, Inferno, and Thunder a lot. And again, it's because this all started with groups of players from the CWHL who wanted a place to call home, and now they can. So something else that's noticeable about the PWHPA is that they're also getting players from overseas. And so, with that being said, they're bringing in Taylor Day Weidenfelder, who's going to make her debut this year with the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. She played in Germany with Bundesliga. And so, it's again, when you look at growing the game, there's an extensive outreach, and it's between the now coaches in the assigned 5 training hub regions and the players to make these decisions. And a lot of these players who are overseas right now, you actually have to remember that they're from North America. They're from places like Toronto, Richmond Hill, or for that matter, even PEI, Montreal, wherever it might be. So she returns home, and she'll make her debut with the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association after playing pro hockey in Germany. Now, another player from the Toronto Furies who is returning is Jessie Vela. She played with GTA West and will make her return for the coming season. Now, dubbed as the best Kessel, and some can argue this, but I'd certainly say she's quite talented. She's played for the U.S. national women's team, and she is Amanda Kessel, who is returning to the PWHPA for a second season. So some excellent news on that front. Again, national team players kind of build up the PWHPA and its teams in terms of how many per training hub, given that they are now taking the Buffalo training hub out and replacing it with New Hampshire. Calgary is getting one. So, it goes to show it's all about growth of women's hockey. And at the end of the day, the PWHPA also, just for those who don't really know much about it, it's headed by Jana Hefford, a former national team player herself, who was the former commissioner of the CWHL, replacing Brenda Andres before the league collapsed. Now, they seek out in a hashtag equal sweat deserves an equal opportunity, because they're not getting, again, these same opportunities and infrastructures and resources that they need. And so Jane is tried to make the best of it for them, and for that the players praise her, and former teammates like Haley Wickenheiser praise her for that. But at the end of the day, there's still a long way to go. So this has been a remarkable first year. I personally have been really impressed. They've gone to Kingston, Toronto, Montreal, New Hampshire. They've gone so far. They've gone to Orangeville. They've gone to Philadelphia, Arizona. It's incredible the outreach that Jana has had, and the amount of arenas that have offered to give them the rink that they need at what time for a showcase, to make sure that the women's game has as much outreach as possible, both in Canada and the United States, to ensure that there will be a future for women's pro hockey. So that's essentially why students from the NCAA are joining, now that they are out of school and looking to continue their pro careers rather than hang up the skates. And so that brings us to August 10th, where we see Alexandra Rempe, who is joining the PWHPA. And then behind her, another former Toronto Fury and a native of Kingston like Jana Hefford, home with the Tragically Hip, is Brooke Beezer. And so, the Tragically Hip actually went to visit them at their Kingston tour this year, which, I personally thought was pretty awesome. And again, it's about outreach, it's about support, and having a band like that behind you is awesome. Regardless of their standing, and they've been through some rough stuff, unfortunately. And hockey is something that people say brings you together, and so I certainly believe that it did just that during the weekend in Kingston. Now, another new face to the PWHPA on August the 11th was Katrina Hawkins. Again, we're seeing more new faces at this point than returners, just given that most of the returners have already returned. When we look at returners and national team players, we look at Natalie Spooner, who returned just 2 weeks ago. And then on August the 11th, another returning face, Erica Howe, who is a former netminder for the Markham Thunder in the CWHL and played for GTA East this past season. So she makes her return for the coming season. And then behind her is Jessica Strack, who played at school and is looking as well to continue her career in pro hockey in the only way that right now that she knows how to. So, the PWHPA, it provides that opportunity. It's backed by, sponsors. And, when you look at that, you look at Unifor Secret, which is arguably its biggest supporter right now, as a way to say, okay, this is a company that believes in equal sweat. And so not only are they supporting tour stops, but they're doing an interview series online each week with two players. And I think that that's really awesome. And just recently they launched yet another promotion to say, okay, so, this is the number of men's teams given the chance to return to pro hockey. And then they say 0 is the number of women's teams that have returned. So they're saying we believe equal sweat deserves an equal opportunity. And again, it does. Women's hockey is finally just starting to get noticed. And I had a colleague tell me just last night that he thinks that women's hockey only just started to get noticed during the offseason, during a pandemic, nonetheless. And, why is that? And that sucks. And, truthfully, that shouldn't be how it is. And so, these women are fighting all year long for an equal future for women's hockey, and that again, that includes their coming from a day job, and that if that shows their commitment enough, then they should have the opportunity. And getting to know some of these players and speak with them over the past year at different events has been definitely a thrill for me to understand more about their situations, get to know them as people, and they're so deserving of it. And so you know over the glass PWHPA is going to get you familiar with some of these names with some interviews coming up. I have a guest locked in for next week, and I will reveal that via Twitter at Justin Levine HBS later this week. Anyways, just 6 hours ago, the PWHPA brought in Kayla Vespa from the NCAA, and she was actually discussed as a potential draft pick in the NWHL, but she didn't end up getting drafted, and so that immediately led to her pretty, in some people's minds, pretty obviously coming to the PWHPA, where she can get, just as good an opportunity to play the pro women's game, even if it's not, getting paid right now. But at the same time, again, so the growth of women's hockey, and she'll do what she feels is right, playing with them to, further the outreach of the game, and hopefully for that reason, establish a game for himself. Or herself. So, and again, the NHL's at this time, they're stuck to, we're only going to help do this if there's one league, but the NWHL, they won't part, and, become one giant league. So, until that happens, the NHL's involvement is going to be slim to none. They voice their support for women's hockey, but they don't intend to go any further. So, the person that dreamed up to her again is to find at this point an investor through showcasing their talents that will be impressed enough to help them start to build that infrastructure. That way they're, playing A, with the right resources, B, not playing in community centers, and C, getting paid enough that they don't have to have a day job anymore, that they can focus on training and focus on hockey the way as pro hockey players they should, because, well, it's professional. And, if that's the case, then, this is what they're after. And, they're so committed to making sure that that's the case. And for that reason, I'm going to shout out Jana Hefford, the director of the PWHPA, for all the excellent work that she's done. Chelsea Purcell, who has helped on the sponsorship side. None of this stuff is possible without both of them. So a huge, huge applause there. Then, the amount of volunteers who helped to make a tour stop possible. I really got to see this personally at the Mattamy Athletic Center. I think it's incredible to see so many sponsor hubs, set up during a game, and Secret was one of them. And it goes to show how much outreach and how much belief they have in the pro women's hockey game. And with players by the names of Melody Daou, Amanda Kessel, Natalie Spooner. There's a reason, because these women don't, they shouldn't be having to all of a sudden stop playing, because they're national team players, they're pro hockey players. So they should be playing, and they're hoping the right infrastructure for that reason comes along. And so time will only tell. But until then, they're supported by many fans, many sponsors, and many volunteer staff on all sorts of different ends to ensure that these players are getting everything that they possibly could need up until a pro women's hockey league is created. And so, with that being said, we're going to take a look back to the end of July, where we see Hannah Miller commit to the PWHPA for a second season. Josiane Posbon, again, Natalie Spooner. And, it goes to show these women think this is the best option. But not only that, Kendall Coyne Schofield, a U.S. national team member, is returning for her second season with the PWHPA. And, having faces like that is absolutely huge for the PWHPA, because not only does it ensure that that's what she believes, but it also says, okay, these are such big names that believe this is the right route, then this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to grow the pro women's hockey game. So, again, there's split sides between the PWHPA and the NWHL, but they're both doing great things. But the PWHPA, particularly in seeing the names that they're bringing back, like again, Brittany Howard, Toronto Furies, Cassidy Suave, who's playing with the New England chapter. It goes to show how much hard work and effort is put in by the Players Association, which is headed as well by Liz Knox, a former goaltender for the Markham Thunder, who's really doing all sorts of things to support the PWHPA as a retired player now. So, it really opens your eyes to how incredible a job that they've done, just as the NWHL has in their own way. If we go a little bit further back in July to the 24th, we see the returns of Rebecca Leslie, former Calgary Inferno, and goaltender Jetta Ratcliffe. Now, something else that's really unique about the PWHPA, whereas the NWHL only had one of this, is that, the NWHL only has one player from U Sports. Now, the PWHPA has been really open-minded. They've gotten players from both the NCAA and U Sports, but not just one, several. And on July 24th, they brought in Tatum Claremont, who actually had a highlight reel goal against the Ryerson Rams shown on Sportsnet TV and on sportsnet.ca, which only goes to show, okay, these players are wicked talented, and for that reason they're deserving. And so she didn't end up getting drafted to the NWHL, and so immediately she sought out a spot with the PWHPA, where she's going to get the opportunity to showcase her talents just like anyone else. And she's going to do that with some top names like Laura Stacey, Jamie Lee Rattray, Aya Gavrilova. This list is ongoing. Sydney Kidd, former Toronto Fury. There's so many top names here. Sarah Lafort, who played with Les Canadiens de Montréal and now the Montreal chapter. And it just goes to show, the hard work and dedication to make sure that they get the players from everywhere who want this opportunity to get their names out there, to get their talents out there, to ensure that the product of women's hockey is viable and will count for the future, and will ensure them that they have a home, a place to call home. Because, right now, the PWHPA, yes, it's doing exactly what they need to do, but it's not, home for them. So they want a place where they don't have to keep traveling from region to region, city to city. They want to settle in and be able to be comfortable in their own surroundings. And that's not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. And so again, it's about the infrastructure and making sure that pro women's hockey gets the attention that it deserves. So as we look overseas again, we see Christina Larati, who's going to be joining for her first season with the PWHPA. And then, if we go further back, we see the returns of Carolyn Prevost and Rihanna Curio, both for their second season with the PWHPA. Prevost, a former member of the Toronto Furies. Now, Again, we go to July 20th and we see Samantha Donovan coming out of school. Then, we go further back and we see Savannah Harmon return for her second season. Melanie DeRoche, who played for Lake Canadian de Montreal, she's also going to be making her return for her second season. But not only that, we go back to youth sports and we see Kristen Chow from the University of Toronto Varsity Blues, who's going to be making her debut with the PWHPA this season. Given that youth sports has had such a huge outreach, especially OUA players, to that extent, as we're seeing players from, Toronto, Waterloo, even Windsor from the Lancers, a goaltender. So, it goes to show that they're not going to stop. They want to make sure that everyone who's graduating in the end has a home, and that those players who are national team players, again, we look at Brianna Decker, Sarah Nurse, that these players have a home, they have the resources, and they're going to play together. And, what's better than learning from the pros? Honestly, nothing. And they're going to take away so much when they start their pro careers. My belief is that a WNHL or something will eventually come together through the PWHPA and everything that they've done. It's going to, these are practically students just coming out of school. So, why not learn for the best? That way, the second you hit the ice for your first pro debut, you are ready to go. And you're ready to go thanks to the skills of these all-star players who may or may not, some of them, be retired by that time. But the PWHPA has ensured that they can have this home so they can, feel themselves out and get an idea of pro, because they're playing with pro hockey players. And I think there's nothing better than that. Again, we go to July 16th and we see Genevieve Lacasse, who was a goaltender for Lake Canadian de Montreal. She returned for her second pro season, as well as Kristen Richards, who was a former member of the Markham Thunder in the CWHL, also returning for her second season. So, these are top names. And if this doesn't say to you, I want to watch, I don't know what does. You can find all PWHPA games on Monumental Sports Network, the ESPN mobile app, and CBC Gem mobile app. These were sponsors that jumped on throughout the year to make sure that these games get broadcasted, to make sure that the product of these women get seen, not only in Canada, but the US. They're ensuring that they can grow the women's pro game properly. So, it's just, you have to, at this point, get on board with the women's pro game. Speaking as a women's analyst and a supporter of the game, I've seen and spoken with so many incredible people, so many incredible talents. And, at the end of the day, the support, it's starting to grow. And so if we can get that fan base there, who really believes that and will carry that message with the mission that they're going after, which is for the game, for us all, that we all belong, then you know what? At the end of the day, that's how pro women's hockey is going to succeed, because that's how the PWHPA is succeeding. And that's why they're getting so much attention. So with that being said, this brings the Over the Glass PWHPA segment to a close. This show can also be heard on the BarnBurner Radio Network on its 122 platforms. Please check out barnburner.ca for all the news. BarnBurner. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thank you.